Welcome to the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast with your host, Cody Jansen.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast show, presented by CST Tires and hosted by me, Cody Jansen. It's taken a ton of time to get to this point, but an ATVMX podcast is something that I've been thinking about doing for a while now. So to be at the point of going live with this thing, I've been chomping at the bit since we interviewed Chad Wienen. It's been hard to even contain my excitement up to this point. Before I get too far, I want to thank the sponsors that came on board for this project. Our title sponsor, CST Tires, I can't thank those guys enough. And I also have to thank DID Racing Chain, Evans Waterless Power Sports Coolant, DP Brakes, and 100% and their new R-Mega Goggle. None of this would be possible without them, and bringing this kind of content to the ATV Motocross community couldn't be done without the support of our sponsors, so huge thanks to those guys. Each week we'll start with the Evans Coolant Sight Lap segment where we kind of lead you into the meat and potatoes of the episode. And for this one, the first episode, we're joined by the six-time champ Chad Wienen. Talk about starting the thing off with a bang. My hope for my podcast is to uncover some of the rare and unique stories in our sport. And I think it's only right to start with Chad Wienen for episode 1 because I think he has the most rare story in 2019. He's been around for almost 15 years, but you know, we remember him for the last 7. He's won 6 of the last 7 championships, and you know, he's like I joked about him being a robot, how he's, you know, so status quo. He's been on the podium for all of those 7 years since getting on a Yamaha, but the most intriguing part of the story isn't the most recent chapters. It's the beginning that, you know, a lot of people maybe don't know of, being a guy who was just fighting to qualify and worried about qualifying for races, to being a top 10 pro as a privateer, and how he changed himself into a race winning factory rider in just one off season. So that's probably one of the most remarkable parts of his story, and you'll hear him talk about that here, and I'm really excited to uncover some of that because there's probably a lot of fans of ATV Motocross today that don't know, you know, all the history that happened, you know, to Chad Wienen before he was rewriting the history books with the last, you know, 6 of the last 7 championships. And you also hear him talk about a return from a devastating injury, a role that a lucky pair of socks played in his most recent championship. You'll hear him touch on some of the relationships he has with the other top riders, and you'll basically hear Chad take us on a ride from starting on a Banshee all those years ago back in Illinois to present day, and what may be the most insightful interview in the history of ATV Motocross, and surely the most candid that we've ever seen the 6-time champ. So I don't want to hold off any longer. Get ready to dig deep with the champ. Here's Chad Wienen. All right, guys, so as promised, we welcome 6-time champ Chad Wienen to the show. He is brought to you by DID Racing Chain and their 520 ATV2 chain. This chain features Chad on the box, and I helped develop it as well, so that's fantastic. So welcome, Chad. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for helping us kick this thing off with a bang, and I really appreciate your willingness to come on with us here. So, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Cody, and, you know, pretty cool that you guys are getting something new going, and, you know, there's not a whole ton of media really going on with ATV Motocross, so I think it's a good step in the right direction that you guys are trying to push. And I know there's a lot of shows that people listen to, you know, other than ATV Motocross, so I think that this would be something that the guys can listen to and, you know, really just try and fall in love with it, and, you know, maybe a monthly basis. Is that what you're kind of looking forward to doing?
Yeah, so my goal is right now it's to probably do it in between races. Maybe after every race we'll kind of drop something. That's kind of the plan. But yeah, I'm a podcast listener, so I kind of listen to the dirt bike stuff because I just want to listen to racing things, and with the relationship I have with you and some of the other pros, I knew I could probably put some content out there that would be pretty good. And there's good personalities in this sport. There's good stories. There's good content there. It's just, I think with our sport, it's kind of lacking. So my goal with this podcast in general is to kind of fill in those gaps where our sport is lacking, because I was going to get into this later, but the athletes like that I gravitate towards, that I'm fans of as a sports fan, aren't necessarily because they're like the superstar. I mean, it's because of their backstory, or maybe they overcame some things, or like they're just sheer worthy athletes. So I think that if we are able to kind of fill in those gaps with our sport, you're going to create a better fan base, because a more educated fan is going to be more passionate about what we're doing here, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And, there's a lot of good stories that are pretty much untold, out there with a lot of riders and where they come from. And, a lot of people see what they are and, what they are today. But I think the real stories are definitely the ones that people don't really know. And I think that's what you guys really dig up and give people, the inside sight of really who people are.
Exactly. I mean, just that's like what you and I were kind of going over before we got, on the recording here, was there's a lot of backstory of you that people don't know. And with the coverage that we have, I mean, we're thankful for it, but maybe they only know you as the face on the podium, or they know you from your Instagram, and that's really it. When, I mean, there's a lot more to you than just that, so.
Oh yeah, there's piles of stuff there.
Right. So you're back in Illinois now. How long have you been back in Illinois?
We just got back about a week and a couple days ago after the last round at Muddy Creek. We came back home to Illinois and got welcomed with a lot of rain, so that was fun. But it took a lot of time to really get everything situated around home here, and a lot of people want to see our son and spend a lot of time with him and be with family that we haven't been able to spend a lot of time with since we've been in Florida. So it's always good to have that, and we're back on track, getting ready for Sunset Ridge here next weekend.
Yeah, that's in your backyard, so I know that that's one that you circle on the calendar every year for sure.
Yeah, it's the closest one to home, but it's also the race that I go the earliest to, and we're doing a riding school there for Team USA, and it's always the busiest one. You got a lot of friends and family that want to come down and support, and that's definitely the busiest event of the year, but it's also super fun, and it's one of those that I want to perform well and try and put myself in the center of the podium.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're primed to do pretty well. I saw you there this past weekend, and I was feeling pretty good, and that didn't stop you from blowing my doors off. So thanks for that.
Oh yeah, now you're riding along good, and I think you're ready to come back to the pro class here sometime soon.
Yeah, I'm hoping to make the jump, sometime this year. So when nice. I kind of feel ready, we'll get back there. But I'm looking forward to that. But
nice.
So I think I before I get too far ahead of myself, I just want to thank you for coming on. It means the world to me that you come and join us here, and it really kind of puts us on the map. And I think that you probably have one of the most, if not the most, unique and rare story in our sport. So I'm hoping that we can kind of get that out there and share that with people. And I just really appreciate you coming on. I'm very, very grateful.
Yeah, of course. And I'm a family man now, and I just put my son down to bed, and it's time to wind down, and it worked out perfect. That you wanted interest to hear my story, and I'm gonna pour it out there for you guys.
Perfect. So yeah, my brother's here with me. He's kind of the man behind all the tech stuff. I couldn't do it without him. So when we refer to us, when I say us, that's what we're talking about here. So let's kind of just take it from the top. Where did Chad Wienen start with ATV motocross or ATV racing? How did you get involved, or how were you made aware at the very beginning of this sport?
I mean, we trail rode around the farm that my grandparents owned, and I liked jumping, like, just hillsides and stuff like that. And we put a track together, a couple friends. It was probably about 6 or 7 of us that actually had ATVs that were kind of, I wouldn't call us like daredevils, but just wanted to push the limits of our stock machines that we were riding at the time. We were riding Yamaha Banshees at the time, so it was good fun. And we put a track together. We went to a local event in 1999 down in Warren, Illinois. They call it the Pumpkin Fest, and they put on a motocross race at the fairgrounds. And first race I went to, I'm pretty sure my brother threw a party the night before, and I ended up staying up late, and my couple of my friends that were racing too, like staying up late, and shoot, we didn't get up the next day till around like noon, and like it was a night race, so we were kind of like, we don't have to be there anytime soon. And before you know it, we're like, we better start getting going. And we get a call from a friend that's there, and they're like, hey guys, practice starts in like 40 minutes. And we're still at home, and it's about a half-hour drive. So we book it all the way there, and we get there, sign up, and just make it for practice. And like super nervous, of course, going to my first race, and just kind of winged it. And they had a rubber band whole shot start, classic, and I wasn't a good starter. So I got a bad start, and I ended up working my way up to the front, and I was leading, and I won the first moto of the night, the heat race. And the main came around. I got another mediocre start, and about 2 laps in, I went, there was a triple that I missed a shift over, and I ended up going over the bars, and machine ran me over. I'm pretty sure that with most people, that would be maybe the ending straw of trying to race motocross after a pretty gnarly crash. And I just bounced back up, and, I continued, but I was hurting. I was not in a good place right there. And, I ended up, I don't know what I ended up. It really didn't matter at that point in time because I crashed out. But, next race we had, it was in the fall, and I went back and ended up winning in the race B class, of course. But, I ended up winning that race, and, just kind of all snowballed effect from there. I, upgraded my machine to a 250R then, the next year, and I went to my first national when I was, it was 2 years later. I went to my first national at Redbud.
Okay, so that was 2001?
That was 01, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, went to my first national then, and, I went into B class there in 16 to 24, and I'm pretty sure how fast like 16 to 24 is. There's some rippers back then, and
especially back then, yeah, for sure.
I went into that class not knowing how fast those guys were, and I got my butt spanked. And also in B class, I wasn't like back then. There was only two B classes at the time.
Okay.
So it was super competitive. Like, nowadays there's 3?
Yeah.
So it's just stack classes, and I went in there, and I was like in the top 15 finish, and full gates, of course, and it's pretty cool. And I just went to work from there, and a couple of years later, I built a hybrid CRF Lone Star chassis and rode it for a couple of years, and here come the productions. So I jumped on the Yamaha and rode it, and
oh really? So you were on a Yamaha at some point?
Yeah.
Okay. So what year would that have been? Like 04?
That was, what year did they come out? 03?
03 or 04, yeah.
04. I want to say it was in 04, 05. I want to say I was on Yamahas. And then like 05, I dabbled in the pro class. I did the last couple rounds.
Okay.
When, I don't know if you remember this, like when riders, they would, run the last couple rounds of the pro class to try and get their feet wet for the following year when they're making the full jump.
Exactly. Yep.
And you really don't see that anymore.
No, I did the same thing. When I went pro, I wrapped up the championship and then went pro the last couple races, just to get my feet wet. But you don't see that much anymore.
No, I mean I think it's much needed because riders come out their rookie year, the nerves, and they never drop the gate with the professionals, and all of a sudden they're out in left field, and it's better to figure that out, say 6 months before your next gate drop than all of a sudden you have to be ready now, and you don't have time to get ready.
Exactly. I mean, and when I went pro, in Pro-Am, we had time qualifying. Well, these guys now, they don't have time qualifying. So, until you go pro, and that's a whole nother animal. You can't really teach that until you're out there. So yeah, it's definitely different times. So did you ever race Pro-Am or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I raced Pro-Am. I didn't have any success at all, really. I just couldn't get a start, and my endurance was pretty decent, but I couldn't start with the guys, and all of a sudden they'd be gone by the time I got up to the top 5, and that's kind of where I would finish. And my first pro debut in 05, there was 32 guys on the pro qualifiers.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, I'm like, oh man, it's going to be tough for me to make the top 20 guys. And I went out in the qualifying race. I ripped a really good start, and I finished second in the qualifying race. But remember that the top 10 guys are already seeded, and they didn't have to do that.
Exactly. Yep.
So a lot has changed, since those days. And I was riding against, the Pat Brown, Jeremy Lawson, guys like that were, Wimmer. I mean, those guys were no jokes back then. And,
absolutely. Yeah, that was like the heyday. Yeah, there were so many fast guys.
Yeah, there's some serious guys, and made it into there, and I made it the next 2 or 3 events that I went into, and I got my feet wet for the next year, and I went to a Honda, and I rode it, and went WPSA, and
in 06.
06, yeah, I went and did those. And
so you were on a privateer Honda, but was that somewhat supported by Mark? Did you have Mark's help a little bit, Baldwin?
He helped out a lot, but we all know that Mr. Baldwin is he's a tight cookie, so he doesn't really give much away. And for me, I really didn't establish myself to really even deserve anything like that yet. So I ran the stuff for all of 06, and then I made the change over to D from Rage. Okay. In 07, beginning of the year.
Yeah, but that was short-lived.
Yeah, that was short-lived, and I put in a heck of an off season. I really man, I would go back to work, after the events, and after the last event of the year, I really got my butt kicked, and I was.
It was on that movie. It was on that movie, right?
Yeah, I was on beating the odds, and like I really never felt like that after a race before in my life. And
Englishtown, right? It was where that was recorded.
Englishtown. Yep, Englishtown, and I went back home, and I went back home and I parked the truck and I went straight to the gym, and that's where I pretty much lived after work every day. Like I would spend, an hour or two at the gym, and it's kind of funny that I played football, in high school and stuff like that, and I never really got it into my head that I'm like I need to shave weight, and because I'm a big dude. At the time I'm probably 235 pounds. And, that's about 40 pounds more than I am now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You back then looked like a totally different guy. And it's not like you looked out of shape. It's just that, right now you're so cut, and that wasn't what you were at the time. But it's not like it wasn't in you, because, my first memory ever of Chad Wienen, is in 2006. We were getting ready for the Sunset Ridge National, and we went there on a practice day, and all of a sudden this guy shows up, pulls the number 44 out of the back of his truck on his Honda, and I didn't even know who you were at the time, and you were just destroying the racetrack. Like, I have never seen somebody firsthand go so fast. And so then, I have a cheering interest a little bit. So we show up at the Walnut or the Sunset Ridge race. This is 06. And you got a pro podium that day as a privateer. Yeah, you went like 5.3 or 3.5. And I remember that like it was yesterday. And it was one of those things, because even back then you didn't see quote unquote privateers like podiuming races at that time, because there was so much factory support too. Like the best guys were all on factory supported stuff.
Yeah, it was a pretty stacked field, and I think what really put me over the edge that weekend was when Jay Goebel and he was at the race, Maxxis rep, at that time, and still is a rep for Maxxis, and I went up to him like, hey man, like, can you help out with some tires? Like, I was running some tires that were not working out, super slick out there, and he hooked me up with some tires for the weekend, and then bang, I got on the podium. So I was so grateful at the time, just because, I wasn't being given a lot of stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
And, they just, like, hey, give this guy a couple tires and see what he can do. And, I went out there and got a podium. So I was like cloud nine, just so ecstatic, especially being at, the home track. And I want to say Jeremiah Jones won that day.
I think he did. Yeah. I
was on the podium. I want to say him and Digger.
Yeah,
maybe?
I think you're right.
Or Joe. I think it was Joe, actually.
Okay.
I think it was Joe who was on the podium too. And I was like, man, like, this is surreal being up on the podium with these guys, people that you looked up to, and especially JJ at the time, he was untouchable.
That's what I was going to ask you was, back then, who did you look up to, or who did you model like yourself, your riding after anybody?
I really loved to watch Timmy Farr race.
Okay.
Like, the guy he wasn't always the fastest guy, but he knew how to put championships together.
And he was efficient, with his
Yes.
riding even, I think, before that was a thing. And, still to this day, obviously, you ride efficiently, so.
Yeah, and back then, I didn't ride efficiently. I didn't, really, man, I rode more like Jeremiah, just a bulldozer. And
yeah, well, so what did they call you? Wide Open Wienen? Was that what it was? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So
then that was...
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but in this off season, I I wanted like material to be able to have running during like when I was working out and stuff. So I went back as far as I could to like the beginning of the racer TV stuff for ATVs and was like listening to the old shows. And it's so funny to listen to them. You know, this is obviously pre like 2012-ish. So,
Yeah.
you know, your years on the other brands, and to listen to Weege talk about you as the guy that was so fast but couldn't put it together, and now
Yeah.
we're here in 2019, and you know that couldn't be any more false or less true. Like it's hard to even remember. I mean, you've almost been racing. You say you've been racing pro for almost 15 years, and like the transition is just crazy because you used to be the wide open guy that was just maybe the quad wasn't going to finish, but you were going to be going fast.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, I remember those days like they're yesterday, and listening to Weege and stuff like that too. And it's I don't know where and when it really clicked, but I know after I broke my back in 2011, I think something really clicked in me that I need to ride within my limits at all times, and don't sacrifice the machine by doing like jumps or obstacles that are going to hurt it. And I think it just really clicked then, and I had a lot to think about then.
Oh,
I was sidelines for 6 months, and like a lot of family, they were like, man, maybe it's time to, hang it up, and it's been fun, but I still had a strong drive to really keep pushing, and, some unsettled business, as I called it. So. Yeah.
So we'll take it back to, probably one of the most interesting parts of the whole, your whole story. So in 2006, you get that podium, and you were, but at the end of the season, you obviously weren't satisfied with where you were at. You go home, and like you said, you kind of transform yourself. You lock yourself in the gym. You change, your body build and all this stuff. So take us to the beginning of 2007, and you said you were running rage stuff on a Honda, and so start us right there, and then let us know all the changes that happened in 2007.
Yeah, like, Wayne Meridian from PP really got into my program too. And, it's good to have him like backing me a lot. And he came to some events, and he was riding my machine to the gate a couple times, you don't really see that much of him anymore, but he's still really involved with racing. But, he was the man that you wanted working on your stuff at that point in time.
Yes.
And, it was like, when I was coming through the ranks, and, I saw Timmy Farr, Mark Baldwin, and Wayne Meridian. That was like the team that I wanted to be a part of that one day. And, when I had Wayne working on my stuff, it was like, I got one foot closer to the door, and I ran the first round of the year. We went out and ran. My plan was to run WPSAs, but the AMA events started earlier, so I used them for warm-ups. And I can't remember if the first one, I want to say the first one was in Alabama.
I think you're right. Yep.
Yeah, started in Alabama. First moto, got a bad start, got Richard Pelchat broke an axle right in front of me, and I ran into him. Like, just bad luck. And second moto, came out with a decent start, and I worked my way to the front, and they had this roller section behind the starting gate that I was very good through. And
typical.
Yeah, it's like it was like a fourth gear tap all the way through them, and guys were just like, they seemed like they were in second gear going through them compared to what the pace that I was going through.
Yeah.
I made a lot of passes there, and I ended up going on to win that moto. And I want to say I got on the podium that day, but I can't remember exactly.
Okay.
But,
so that would have been your first moto win as a pro.
Yeah, it would have been my first moto win. Yeah. I don't think I got enough for the podium. I just don't remember, but.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of the only races I didn't look up, kind of prepping for this, because I figured it'd be so fresh in your memory.
Yeah, man, I think the one that, the next two were the toughest ones that, went out to Glen Helen the next round, and man, I was flying there, and I'm a privateer guy, and I'm beating, the factory guys that are, and they're like, who's this guy? Where's this guy come from?
Yeah, so where would you, not to interrupt, but where would you have been the year before in points? Top 10-ish, right? That's where I thought of you as a top 10-ish guy right there, And then I remember, because I'm a little kid at the time, following, these races like you guys are God, and I'm looking at the results and I see you win, and I'm like, holy man, where did this come from? So continue on.
Yeah, and went out there, and that place is it's like a horsepower track out there. I got that long hole shot and
a couple big hills,
huge hills, and really doesn't benefit me a whole lot, but it was when you come down those hills is when, I was able to make my mark and, really charging down and just not really having a fear of the intimidation factor of going down such steep hills, and, made my way to the front, and I had a nice comfortable lead, and all of a sudden, had a coil wire break and my machine expired. So I was distraught, come on, put these together. And, next round we go to Texas, and same roundabout, way, one of the huge highlights of my career was on that day. Remember racing with Wimmer and Gust. They were pretty much in formation throughout the first moto, and I ended up passing both of them, crashing, getting back up, and passing them again.
Oh my.
And ended up finishing the moto. I want to say I finished the moto inside the top 5.
Okay.
And the next moto, I get a much better start, make quick work, and 2 laps from the end, I cracked my engine cases in half and lost all the oil out of them, and machine expired 2 laps to go. Hugely, close to a 20-second lead.
And at the time, you got to just be thinking, man, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, and Ryan Cox at the time, he was pretty much sitting right where I stopped at.
Okay.
And he came up to me and he said, Chad, don't worry, everything's gonna be all right.
So
and at the time he worked for factory Suzuki.
Right. Yep. That's what I was gonna ask.
And I was at the time, I'm like, okay, yeah, well, everything's gonna be just fine.
Right.
And I get a phone call. Probably about a couple days later from Rod Lapuznak from the factory Suzuki race team. And he called me and he's like, hey, Chad, how would you like to run our LTR 450 in WPSA series starting, for their first round? And I was just kind of silent for a couple seconds, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I don't even have to think about it.
Shocked, just on the, you kind of dream of a phone call like that, getting,
of course, yeah.
I used to sit in bed and I was trying to get support from Yamaha, a couple of years before that, and I'm like, I just want the phone call to come in, and I want to hear them say, yes, we'll help you out. And that'll be me doing my own program with Yamahas. And this is a whole nother step where I show up to the race and they have everything ready. It's the gravy train, right there. So, we do some testing. We get comfortable on the machine. We go to our first round.
So how many weeks were there in between you getting that call and then, the first race?
I want to say it was less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I didn't think it was very long. That's why I wanted to mention that.
We drove down to Georgia, and we did. They had the next round of the AMA racing down in Etchicounty, and I didn't compete because I was getting ready to jump on the Suzuki for the first time, and they got me a practice machine ready, and I tested it the day after the race down there on the same track that they raced at Etchicounty the day before.
Okay.
So I rode it there. I was very uncomfortable the first day. It just didn't feel, obviously you jump from machine to machine, it's different. And I'm trying to get more comfortable. We're changing, stem heights, bars, seats, foot pegs. There's a lot going on.
The full factory treatment. Yeah.
And they have everything in that truck that I wanted to change.
Sure. Yeah.
So I was like, wow, these guys are able to get some stuff done quick. And that's my first, run in with a factory team, and the way that they ran things was so tight, and, there wasn't anything that was out of the question, for them to get you comfortable, because, they wanted to win, and that was the bottom line. So I'm coming into the truck behind, Wimmer and Gust.
Yeah.
And there's there is, what do they call it? Too many chickens in the hen house?
Yeah.
Well, too many roosters in the hen house?
Right. And it's not if you're comparing it to dirt bikes, there's a number one and a number two rider a lot of times, or 1, 2, 3. Well, you guys were all at the front.
Yeah. And, you got Gus, the veteran, and you got Wimmer that, flew onto the scene, and he's been doing really, really, really well. And all of a sudden I'm the new guy, and, they accepted me very well, but obviously, they didn't want this guy that really didn't establish himself yet and come in and have a few good races to come in and just take, what they had going on.
Of course.
And, obviously you feel a little bit, of pressure because, you've never done that before, and they got a couple races under their belt, and, we go to the first round and we're battling with the tally for the top spot. We get around them, and, I ended up boiling our race fuel, and the machine started running very bad and popping, and pretty much had to limp it home to the finish. And that was my first round of the WPSA getting started, and, I'm already hurting this machine.
Right.
And, and it really doesn't settle in what I got to do. I'm just I'm going to ride this thing as hard as I can, as long as I can. And hopefully it makes it. And it never, for several years, that's all I did.
Yeah.
I just rode the machine as hard as I could. And, if we couldn't have a machine underneath me that could finish, I felt at the time was their fault, but, it was a little bit of mine, the way that I was riding it. I was just riding it too aggressive, too hard, too much clutch. And
yeah. So you won some races in 2007 in WPSA.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I won my first overall at Taylorville, Illinois. And that was, I want to say,
round 2.
I want to say that was round 2. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I think so. It was Georgia, and then Taylorville.
Yeah. And I want to, that was awesome. Just finally putting it together. And, the track I really didn't I didn't really favor the track a whole lot, like being pretty flat, wasn't really many jumps, like ground and pound track. And I'm more, I like to jump, technical, and have super rough.
Yeah, and that track didn't even have like a whoop section or anything like that. It was they had a little bit of, if I remember correctly, they had a little bit of like wood chips, and that got like a little choppy, but it's pretty much a highway. So to think that you got your first win on a track like that is it's kind of like inverted.
Yeah, it was kind of a curveball, but it was just one of those days that came together, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah, I remember that one too. Because at that time we're following the story now as a fan. Like, we come from a culture that you always cheer for the underdog, and that's really what you were. Like, you were the underdog that earned his way onto this team, and now you're killing it. So 2008, were you on Suzuki again? Was that a 2-year gig?
Yeah, I did a 2-year with them, and I call 2008 was an injury plagued year.
Oh, it was. Okay. So I was curious, because I thought you were on Suzuki again, but I couldn't remember, like what was memorable about that season. Cause I think, didn't you only like win one race? Win one, I think 6th in points, 3 podiums and 1 win, was what I saw for 08. So.
Yeah. And I think my win came at Loretta's.
Oh, really? At the very end?
Wait, I can't remember, but I want to say I broke my scapula that year, and I tried to keep riding, and it would keep re-injuring it, and I took a weekend off between, I didn't go to Unadilla.
Okay.
And the next round after that, I came back and I did a lot better. I want to say I got on the podium, and then we had the pro race with the outdoor motocross up in
Steel City. Yeah.
Yeah, and I won that.
Okay.
And that was a huge event.
Yeah, it sure was.
And got to ride in front of a lot of people that, really didn't see what ATVs could do. And, it was a cool event to win, and, coming off of that injury. And I think that's exactly what I needed. And with the next year, Digger in his contract, he had a deal that if he finished 3rd in points, they would sign him on for another year, and they were going down to a 2-rider team that next year in 2009. So I got axed out, and I ended up signing with Monster Energy Kawasaki in 2009. And, going on with that program, I brought my mechanic with me, Ryan Cox, and we helped transform that machine into a racing machine. But it took us several rounds to really get there. The first 3 motos of the year, I DNF'd.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we ended up boiling these things down, riding it too hard, and had too much ignition in the machine, and pretty much just detonated the thing to death. And,
wound it too tight.
Yeah, and so, once we figured that out, and Dustin Wimmer had a injury that year too, and I want to say, can't remember if it was at Walnut, I took over the points lead.
Okay.
I took over the points lead that year, and a couple rounds later, we went out to, is it Pleasure Valley, I think?
Okay, Pennsylvania.
Went out to there, and PA, and the whole shot I got tangled up with Cody Miller, and it broke my kill switch, and the machine just stopped running, and I lost the points lead there, and we tried to recoup it the rest of the year, and I ended up getting, I want to say, second or third in the championship eventually.
Yeah, I looked that one up because it was the Kawasaki year. And, third in points, 7 podiums, 2 wins, which, I mean, I thought, and I didn't know that it started that poorly, but, I mean, I think that's a pretty good effort for the Cowie team right there.
Yeah, like we had promised. We had really good opportunity to win the championship that year, but, we too many DNFs. I think we had 4 DNFs that year.
But those, I don't know what else is memorable about the Kawasaki, but those bikes look sick. Those bikes look so cool.
They are a sick machine. I still have one. I actually have one of every machine that I raced. Like I have my first Honda that I raced in 07.
Okay.
And I have a Suzuki that I raced, and I have a Cowie. I have a Can-Am.
Yep.
And I have several Yamahas still.
Yeah. So then, for the next year, what happened to Kawasaki? Was that deal no more, or did you choose to go to Can-Am?
Well, with Cowie, they pretty much closed the doors with the race team, and man, I don't even know if they still made. I think they still made the machine, but they closed their racing doors. But I signed with Can-Am that following year with Motorworks Can-Am, and John Natale is a teammate.
Yep.
Like we didn't get along. We were competitors against each other.
Yeah, and two guys that are, I mean, gonna do whatever they can do to win. They're gonna do both of you guys.
Yeah, and like we butted heads a couple times throughout the season. I remember at Walnut, I came in way too hot in a turn, and it collided with him and took both of us out. And it was just like at that time, like I really wanted to be my teammate. Like I was almost too focused on beating him than trying to win races.
Sure. Yeah, I remember that run in like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so what was it like going back to the truck after that one?
Oh, I knew it was 100% my fault, and I admitted it, to everybody, and I was just riding too hard and not being patient enough. I mean, I was trying to get around John and losing my patience. So
yeah, and that was still another year of so many stacked good riders, riders, good machines, good teams. So, I mean, those were the times where you couldn't really waste any time.
Yeah, and having 3 different teams in 3 different years, and it takes you time to develop a machine and get it to where it can win.
Of course, yeah.
Nowadays, I mean, riders are pretty settled into what they're riding. Like I've been riding Yamaha since 2012, and a lot of riders have been riding the same machine for several years too. So you have the machines dialed, but then 3 machines in 3 years, it always took us a year to get a machine to where it was ready to win a championship.
Of course.
And then, then it was time to move on to somewhere else. Teams would close their doors, or they would move to a different riders.
Yeah. So hypothetically speaking, would you have liked to stay with Cowie for another year and done that gig?
I definitely would have, and I felt like we had, the bugs worked out of the machine that we would have been able to really contend for a championship, all, 24 motos that we did back then. So, yeah, and that's just, everything happens for a reason, and I moved to Can-Am and rode with them, and first year was kind of just up and down. I was really struggling throughout the year, and I remember before Red Blood, like I was training my butt off. Like I'm like, I gotta train harder. And after after, I want to say Unadilla going into Redbud, all I did was off the machine training. I didn't ride my machine once that whole pretty much 2 weeks.
Okay.
Show up to Redbud, and I ended up winning the overall that weekend. My first overall of the year.
Okay, sure, yeah.
And so I'm like, all right. So I do the same thing heading into Loretta's, and that was the year that we got dumped on with rain, and they cut it down to one moto.
Okay, 2010. This is at this point.
Yep, 10. Yep. So they cut it down to one moto. So that pretty much secured Creamer for the championship. And we go out there, we busted out for one moto, I ended up winning that one moto, and, won my second moto of the year, and ended up, like third, or I don't know, I can't remember what exactly in points, like what I ended up finishing, but, we had another year that we signed with Can-Am, and this was the year that, I felt like we had everything going the way that we wanted it to. Won several overalls.
Yeah, four of the first 7 that year.
Yeah. And we go to Millville. I ended up winning there, and we're on like a little bit of hiatus. So we're doing some testing at my house, and last lap of my moto, I'm going through my whoop section. I start to get crossed up, and boom, like I'm on my back, and about 4th gear tap whoop section that I had, and ended up getting airlifted to Rockford. It's about an hour and a half away, and I ended up severing my spinal cord and breaking my T3 and T4.
Oh my.
And so I'm in the points lead at this time, and I'm sitting there talking with the doctor. I'm like, Doc, like, we got to do something, because all I could think about was that I had to somehow be on the gate next round, and that was in a week.
Okay.
And the doctor is just sitting there like, Chad, that's not going to happen. This is way more serious than you're really taking it.
Sure, yeah, because the competitor in you is, I've been working my whole life to be here and have the points lead and compete for a championship, and now here I am in a hospital bed.
Yeah, and so, we do the operation. I'm there for a week, and I go home, and John Natali ends up breaking his wrist.
Okay.
So now I'm
teammate still?
Teammate still, yep.
Okay.
He ends up breaking his wrist, and he gets plates put in it. So now I'm really thinking, like, all right, like he's in second at the time, and I'm like, all right, there's got to be some way that I can get on the gate. Still thinking about this a week after, and I a week out of the hospital. I was in the hospital for a week, and they gave me a walker. And they're like, if you have the ability, you can walk, out of here. And I'm like, okay, that's what I want to do. I want to walk out of the hospital. Like, I didn't walk in, I want to walk out. So 7 days after my being there, I walk out of the hospital, heavily drugged up, of course. And so I get home, and they gave me some serious medication that, I was on it for a couple days, and I couldn't even remember people coming by and, saying hello. I couldn't even remember who it was, and I got off of that medication and pretty much, kind of just toughed it out.
Sure, yeah.
I remember going off my back porch and looking at my track and just in distraught, like, how's this happen? What do I got to do to catch my break? And,
yeah,
long off season. And, I get myself healthy, super heavy into the rehab, like as quick as I could. And, obviously, I'm listening to my doctors on when I'm, ready to go. And I waited till a green light to when, I could ride, I could do rehab, and I hit it hard. And, I didn't have a ride. I lost my ride that year.
Okay.
Because John went on to win the championship. And so they couldn't afford 2 heavy hitters,
Yeah.
on their team. So they had to have a number 1 and a number 2 rider. And I want to say they hired Joel that next year.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're right.
And so I was out of the ride and I went searching. We went to work and, my wife, I put her pretty much through the worst of worst time that I've ever been through, and she was there for it. And, I don't know how she even stuck with me because I was pretty miserable. And, we went to work. We got Yamaha on board, and my mechanic Ryan, all the way from Suzuki days, he was still with me, and he walked from Can-Am to come work with me for a year on Yamaha.
Sure. Yeah.
And we developed the Yamaha. We went down to Walsh and we stayed there the whole winter long, and we tested and we developed. And Walsh at the time didn't have any components for the Yamaha. Like we pretty much developed the whole Yamaha and spec'd everything out that one year.
Okay.
I don't know how we did it in an off season because I didn't get there till like mid-January.
And you're kind of doing this on your own,
I'm pretty much I'm getting factory support from Yamaha, but I'm running the show.
You basically bet on yourself on this deal.
Yep. And I did not get one paycheck that year.
Wow. That's your first championship year.
That's my first championship year. It was all contingency based.
So that's the definition of betting on yourself.
Yeah. So,
so was that scary? Was that scary for you because you're coming off this injury, you're starting on a whole new team of your own, a whole new bike, and you've been a factory rider now for 5 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So was that extra anxious?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to believe that I could go out and win, but coming on a new machine, we're like, all right, here we go again. Like, we're going to have a tough year of learning and dialing in a machine, but we came out swinging and we went to the first round and we passed Natalie for the last turn. We passed him for the lead and we won the overall that day.
Okay. Yeah, that was so after all the development in the off season, is that maybe what made you conscious of trying to keep these bikes alive? Now that you're maybe more hands-on?
Yeah. Before I would just ride them. They would send me an engine and we'd swap it and,
plug it in and do it again. Yeah.
But now, we only have so much of a budget from Yamaha and everybody else that we can't blow through it, by breaking stuff all the time. So I kind of developed my riding style to be more fluid and more gentle on the machine. But ultimately, I honestly, the Yamaha itself is like, it just worked with me. Like it just worked, and it's a tough machine that, we put it through some gnarly conditions and, it keeps running. So I never go to the line uncertain of my machine that it's going to get me across the finish line.
And was that even at the beginning? Were you already sold on this thing?
Yeah, oh man, Can-Am, we would still tear up transmissions and cranks, and so I'd be practicing on this machine all year, and Cox is like, hey, we should tear into this bottom end and see how everything is. It's been a while. We got 30, 40 hours in this thing, and we take it apart and check out the transmission, the crank, and he's like, dude, everything's fine. Everything looks good. Let's put it back together. So, from there, cause riding down the sand in Florida, it is super hard on everything.
Oh yeah, of course it is.
when I went through that kind of, hours on the machine and it's still running strong and not having missing a beat, like I'm gaining confidence. Like I'm like, okay, we got a really strong machine. We just gotta, be clean everywhere.
Of course, yeah. So that was 2012, and yeah, you ended up dominating. You didn't make it look like it was your first championship. Winning more than half of the races, and you from the beginning on that Yamaha looked like it just was meant to be. Your riding style, the way you fit it. I don't know if it's better for a bigger rider or it fits the bigger rider well. But from the very beginning, I remember from Aonia Pass on, it was like you and that thing were meant to be. And you made, I don't know, did you make a last corner pass at Aonia or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That was round one at Aonia. Natalie was leading the whole race, and I was stalking them and could not find a way around. And I got a good run through the rollers and squared them up and drag raced them down the straightaway, ended up making the pass and went on to the win. And I remember seeing a photo, like Ian Harris from SSI, like we're very close, great friend.
Yeah.
And he's like, he put a lot into my program that year because, we were running it ourselves. Like he was very involved. And I remember seeing a photo of him in the stands, jumping off of the stands, like 4 stands up onto the ground, like so excited that I won. And like, if you know Ian, like he's pretty chill, like, he doesn't get too excited.
No, he's a cool cat. He's always
and, like,
reserved.
To see that, like, and see how much it meant to him and how much it meant to me, that I knew that I had very good people in my corner that were going to have my back and get me, ultimately to the very end to win my first championship.
And I was going to ask you that earlier, was when Ian really got involved, because I had heard in the past, that he was maybe there from the very beginning or helped you get into it, but was he around prior to, coming on so strongly when you kind of started your own effort?
Oh yeah. He's always been there. But I mean, when I'm riding for a factory team, like, yeah, you're feeding the factory, with graphics and everything like that. It's not a whole lot of like me intertwining with him.
I see.
Because, so now we're talking on a daily basis.
And you're from
yes.
close to Ian, yeah.
Yeah, we live in the same town.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I didn't know how that all started. Or
yep.
did you get him into ATVs or was that already before all that?
Well, like our second race that I ever did, he came out and raced that one too.
So it was just coincidence that you guys crossed paths.
We never met each other prior to that, and like, they like, his family owned Signcraft Screen Print, and he made SSI into, the motocross extreme sport brand.
Oh yeah, I mean you can't imagine ATV motocross nowadays without him, or motocross in general, doing dirt bike stuff, supercross stuff, pro motocross stuff across the board. So, because was there a time there where he was helping one of the factory teams, or is that not true?
For
was he ever for you guys, was he ever supporting any of the factories you were on? That's what I thought.
Yeah, actually, I want to say we ran his graphics for 1 year on Suzuki.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was the Suzuki.
And then we had I want to say N style or Nerf style, whatever it is, for Cowie, and then at Motorworks we had SSI as well.
Okay, yeah, I've thought about this in the past that without you and without however you and Ian got together, I mean, that really changed the whole landscape of ATV motocross and SSI's involvement and everything else like that.
Yeah, like I remember him taking me to races.
These are some of the stories that I've heard. This is what I was getting at.
Yeah, like I remember, him taking me to races. I'm not 18 years old yet, so like he's signing on as my legal guardian, and it's just like just really cool memories. Like going to we went out to Iowa a couple times. We've been to nationals, and just being accepted into his family, and this guy holding me around to go to races. And we've been super tight ever since, and still are, and awesome family.
Yeah, that's awesome. Especially being under 18. I mean, you'd need somebody like that. I don't know how your blood family was into it or not into it at the time, but yeah, you definitely need people that are gonna enable it at that point.
Yeah, they were all into it, but like not, they weren't gonna haul me around to races. Like I was old enough to drive, but I wasn't old enough to sign up on my own.
Right. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Like I said, you need somebody.
Yeah, and I remember, him having his first daughter, and them going to Daniel Boone and going racing, and in London, Kentucky, and oh man, just it's crazy that his oldest daughter now just graduated and going to college, and it's like, wow, like where did time go? Like it's
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But how cool is it that he's been there from the very beginning?
Yeah.
That's pretty special. Like just to see the transition. He's stuck it out through all the stuff you went through, so that's got to be a pretty special bond.
Yeah, and he's still riding too.
Oh, of course. Yeah, he shows up every year and wins Walnut.
Yeah, I know. Like he brings out the boots and goes to Walnut. He usually tries to go to Redbud too. Like those are two really awesome tracks to go to, and
yeah,
he usually makes it out to those, and shoot, out there winning plus 40 B class. So
I know. Yeah.
cool.
I pretty much give him a hard time every year about it's because of all the practice that he does. So
yeah, he gets well rested.
yeah, for sure. Hope you're enjoying the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. Just like Chad and many others, including myself, we couldn't do it without the support of Ian at SSI Decals, and the production of our show wouldn't be possible without our sponsors. It means the world to me that the following brands would entrust me and support my project from its inception without really knowing what to expect from this. First and foremost, a huge thank you to CST Tires, CSTTires.com, for coming on as the title sponsor. The Pulse MXR tire, available in soft and standard compounds, offers the highest level of traction, most predictable cornering, and superior wear characteristics. Of the countless riders I've turned on to CST tires, not a single one has been disappointed. Join the takeover and upgrade to CST today. Our featured guest is brought to you by DID Racing Chain and their 520 ATV2 X-Ring chain. This patented X-Ring racing chain boasts a steel alloy construction for reduced weight, increased strength, and a longer overall chain life, setting the standard and making it the optimal ATV racing chain. Pick out the ATV2 chain at your local dealer or wherever DID chains are sold. Wherever you go, go DID. We are also supported by Evans Waterless Powersports Coolant. Our Site Lab intro segment is brought to you by Evans. The best powersports coolant on the market, Evans Coolant prevents boil over so you never have to pull over or worry about your engine no matter what the condition. Designed for use in ATVs, UTVs, motorcycles, snowmobiles, and more. Use what the pros use. Choose Evans today. The Digging Deep ATVMX podcast is also sponsored by DP Brakes. DP has been dominating the ATV world for a while now by supporting riders like Joel Hetrick, Jeffrey Rastrelli, Nick Janusa, Baldwin Motorsports, JB Racing, Root River, myself, and more in ATV Motocross. In GNCC Racing, they have all of the top 15 XC1 pros using DP, including the likes of Walker Fowler, Jared McClure, Chris Borich, Bryson Neal, Cole Richardson, and more, not to mention Hunter Hart and the top 4 XC2 riders. These riders continue to appreciate the high performance and impressive durability that their DP brakes have to offer, products that ultimately help place them consistently on the top of the podium. Available at dp-brakes.com, purchase at your local dealer, or even message me for their contact info today. What are you waiting for? Join the best ATV riders in the world on DP Brakes. Finally, our fan question segment is brought to you by 100% and their new Armega goggle out now. Thanks to those guys for the support and supplying us with awesome 100% giveaways. Not to mention the new goggle that is setting the standard in moto. Now back to the show. So we ended with 2012. That was your first championship, and really the beginning of one of the most incredible streaks that or stats you got going is this podium streak. So it started in 2012. 2013, that next year was, maybe on paper your most successful or strongest. So how much different was the dynamic now with Yamaha?
Yeah, they came on board, salary, more budget. That was their first, AMA Pro Championship. So they came on and really helped out my program a lot. And I signed with, Maxis. I signed a money deal with them, and
okay,
I'm starting to make money now, with these companies, and, they're knowing that, I'm not coming off an injury and not have a big question mark on my back.
You've solidified, and now like you had said, I don't know what it would have been, but basically 4 quads in 5 years or 6 years or whatever, you were switching quads almost every year.
Yeah.
Now you've solidified. You have your base, and it didn't even take a transition year to figure out the quad. You guys had it figured out, won a championship. You're moving into year 2, and that was the year that you brought Thomas on, right?
Yeah, brought Thomas on, and we worked together, and he had good success too. I want to say he won his first race that year too, and 2013, wrapping up the championship early at Redbud, and definitely my strongest year. But I think we honestly didn't change much from 2012 all the way up until, I want to say, we ran pretty much the same machine for 4 years. And yeah, and we just did a little bit of suspension testing, nothing too crazy, but everything chassis wise, engine wise, we ran the same thing, and all of a sudden we have Joel Hetrick knocking on our door, and we have to get back to work and start our engine development again. So Tom Alaska really went to work and got us some more power and some more torque, and we ended up winning two more championships from there. 15, 16.
Yeah. So 12, you won the first year on the Yamaha. Then 13, 14, you won both years. You won every race but 2. So those were pretty strong. And
yeah.
and then in 15, I don't know if that was the year. No, I think Joel crashed at the beginning of the next year. But in 15 you won, half the races, and still at this point, how many years is that now? Ever since you started on the Yamaha, that you hadn't missed the podium in a single race.
Yeah. Just touching on that, I don't know, I just have in my mind that I need to do everything I need to do at least to get on the podium, because, that's always been, for those, since 2012, that's been my remedy of winning championships. Let these other guys dig their own holes and let me just stay consistent and, bring championships home. And honestly, from obviously 12, I really remember that one. I really remember 13, 14, 15, I remember those, but obviously they seem like a blur.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you, is if does it kind of all just gel into one because you're stringing all these things together?
Yeah, I remember the first one, the second one was a very strong, performance. But, man, it's just so hard to, they do gel into one. Now, last year, obviously I remember that one very well. But, prior to that, I remember the one that I didn't win. So
well, I think that as athletes, right, like they say, you remember the ones that didn't go your way, or you remember the losses, more vividly than the wins.
Yeah. See,
because in on paper, Chad, it looks like it should be a tie, but Joel had a really strong run there at the end of the year. I don't know if it was three overalls maybe.
Yeah.
Pretty close to the end. But, I guess the craziest thing for me, so take us through what it's like. Do you do most of the wrenching on your stuff during the week? Do you do most of the wrenching in general on your machines?
I do all the wrenching.
That's what I thought. Which is the most amazing part to me, because now keeping these things alive is not only on you as a rider, but it's on you as a wrench. The fact that you haven't had a DNF or a mechanical in so long, and like I said, you're hands-on with all of it. That's literally mind-blowing.
Yeah, after Ryan Cox left, he went to work for Troy Lee Design's KTM team in 2013. So that for 2012, that whole year, he pretty much taught me everything I needed to know about working on my machine and keeping it running, because he was focused on building the race machines and keeping those going. He didn't have time to work on my practice machine.
Right.
So I did all the top ends. I did, everything of that sort, the work on the practice machine. So he taught me the ins and outs, and I'm really glad he did, because, when he took off that next year, there's only a few people that I trusted, but I couldn't afford to, the people that I did trust, I couldn't have them move, to Illinois and work here. So I took on me wrenching and building all my race machines, all my practice machines in between preps of each race. And then I hired Turner to mechanic for me.
Yeah.
On the race weekends.
Yep.
But, and I did that for the first year, and I was like, man, it really takes up a lot of my time, but I know that nobody's going to do the job that I want to do to my machine better than I can, just because I know the way that I like my machine. So I've been continuing doing that since 2013.
Sure. And do you think that makes you almost a better rider, or you can ride the machine better, understanding how it works? And
Oh yeah. And a lot of kids that I teach, and they don't know anything about their machine. They don't know how to work on them. And I'm sitting there, I'm telling their parents, I'm telling them, you have to give your son or daughter some responsibility to work on their machine a little bit, so they understand how it works, and how, when you're feeling things, you're hearing things, what it could be. And, it really helps you understand how your chassis works and how suspension works. And, it's a good trait to learn, but man, it took me a long time to learn it.
It's extra rewarding too, I'm sure, because you're hands-on with every piece of this machine. When you win, it's not just on the track. It's not just in the gym. It's not just driving the truck there. It's in the shop and everything else. The whole program is fully hands-on, all you.
Yeah, and it's rad. Just at the end of the day, you take a step back, and you realize what you've accomplished. And I really didn't take a step back until I lost my first one on the Yamaha.
Okay.
Like, I was always looking forward and didn't really look in the past of what I did. You know, I was always like, we're on to the next one. Let's go on to the next one, you know, and, you know, I lost my first one in 2017 and, you know, Tom Alaska, my engine builder, he's like, Chad, you have to look back at what you've done. And I was just like, what do you mean? Like, Chad, like, you won 5 consecutive championships. Like, do you ever take a step back and just, you know, not necessarily accept, but just reminisce about what you've done? Yeah.
Appreciate, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I really didn't do that until then, that whole off season. You know, I appreciated what I did and what we've been able to accomplish as a team. And, you know, my team is a very small group of people, but there's a lot of people that support it, but there are very few people that have their hands on it. And, you know, between my wife, you know, Tom, we got Mikey from Walsh Racecraft, you know, that was it.
Yeah, yeah. Which, like I said, it's all on you and your tight group, and it's gotta double down on how you know, how much it means to you when you're successful.
And I really think that's been like the remedy that has worked out for me is that you have the least amount of moving parts.
Of course, yeah, in consistency, right? I mean, you have less variation because you're in control of it all.
Yeah, like, I mean, yeah, if I'm slacking and I do something wrong or take a shortcut, yeah, it can bite me, but I have not been brought up that way, and I know that by taking shortcuts, that is that's a big no-no in our sport.
Of course, yeah. So that was 2017. You lose a championship. You're reminiscing now. You're reminiscing on all that you've done, and it almost felt to me from afar like it was kind of like 2006 all over again. You know, maybe you weren't rebuilding yourself, but you could sense a change. You know, and maybe that was you appreciating what you had done. But man, it sure seemed like you came into 2018 last season hungry as could be. Yeah,
I mean we came in there swinging. Just, man, we won the first 2 motors of the year, and like a big mistake on mine. The third motor of the year, I did a huge rookie mistake. I didn't put my machine all the way into gear, and on the second hole shot, and I put myself in a bad position out of the gate. And probably one of the best rides that I've had in years, coming through the pack and getting back to second. And in between the following rounds, I fractured my heel.
Oh, really?
And nobody really knew this. I mean, there's something about moto that, you know, you just don't release what happens to you. Like, if something happens, it's like it's almost like you're showing weakness.
Right. Not like somebody's going to walk up to you and kick you in the heel, but yeah, you don't want to show any chink in the armor.
Yep. And so I was in a walking boot for a couple weeks, and like I was still trying to ride, and it just kept it never got better.
Oh, sure. Yeah, because heels are tough. Heels are real tough.
So I just took some time off, and we went to Texas, and like we weren't obviously 100%, but I felt like I can go there and win. And, you know, we went there and won, but, you know, Joel was riding very well there. And, you know, pretty much what I've, you know, let everybody just make their own mistakes and me just ride my races and don't worry about them. And that's the way it went, you know, pretty much that whole year. But, you know, Joel was on the gas that whole year, and, I would fight back, and we would have some good motos, and I would come out and win some motos, and he would win some motos. And we went into Redbud, and I think I was down 11 points.
Okay, going into Redbud.
I want to say going into Redbud, yeah. So I had to go on pretty much a 4-moto win streak.
Okay.
To win the championship outright. And I went in there and I won the first moto.
And then it rained.
And it rained the second moto. Got a good start, went into the next turn, and I got spun out. I got spun out by Joel, and at the end of the race, super fired up because I knew that
the ball wasn't
no offense to like the other riders that I was racing with, there wasn't many guys that were going to get in between us.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Like help my cause. So like that night, I remember sitting in the motorhome and I'm like screaming into my pillow that I'm so mad that that was my opportunity and it's slipping away. And before I went to bed, I'm telling myself, I calm myself down and I'm like, Chad, anything can happen. You put your smile on, get out there on Sunday, enjoy the day of like watching amateurs racing. And I trained my tail off between then and Loretta's.
But you were going through this though, saying that there's a chance. You weren't one of those you weren't somebody that was saying like this is too good to be true.
Yeah, like I knew that Jeremiah came up to me on Sunday after Redbud, and he came up to me, he's like, Wienen, Gary Denton went down to Loretta's, he was down 14 points going into Loretta's. And he ended up coming out of there and winning the championship that year. And I'm like, man, like, I'm only down like 11 points or something like that. So I'm like, okay, well, I start thinking positive, and I come back home, I'm training, heat training, I'm getting myself as prepped as I can.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school playing football, we won a lot of championships in football, like through like different class years. We won like 3 championships in the matter of like 8 years.
Okay.
And so the first year, one of the guys, he wore a pair of socks to the championship game, and we won, and he passed them on to another teammate, and we ended up winning again.
Okay.
And the next teammate, it was my brother that gave them to me, and I wore them, and we won the state championship we were in overtime, and we forced a missed field goal to win the game.
Oh, wow.
And like, we call that the Cinderella season. We went to the playoffs 6-3.
Okay.
And we had no at that point in time, we had no business we got lucky to make the playoffs 6-3.
Sure. Yeah, long shot, yeah.
And so we beat 3 number 1 seeds going through the playoffs, and so I considered those socks to be good luck.
Okay.
So I passed them on to another player, a grade class below me. They go on and they win a championship themselves. And the dad of his son, he ends up at my door before Loretta's. And he gives me these socks back.
Just out of the blue?
Out of the blue. He's
Oh,
like,
my.
hey, Chad, I figured you could use some luck this weekend. So I take these socks with me and I wear them the first moto.
Okay.
And that happens.
And yeah. And then, so that first moto, there's bad luck for Joel.
Yeah.
So what goes through your mind when you see, the number one, I guess at the time, that's what Joel was running. What do you think when you go by?
Like, honestly, I didn't know he was broke down. I did not see him.
Oh, really? Okay.
I didn't see him, but all I knew going into that race is that I had to win. And that
was your only focus. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I would look at the pit board every once in a while, but, like, I didn't see when Mike put on the pit board 88 out.
Oh, my goodness.
So I finished the moto, and I get back to the truck, and I'm like, I didn't see Joel anywhere. Where'd he finish? He's like, dude, like, he was, like, 15th. I'm like, what?
The lucky socks. The lucky socks.
Yeah, the lucky socks, man. So I take these socks off, and I wear new socks in between every moto. We put them in front of the fan, and we dry them off. We get them ready for moto 2.
Yeah, we're slapping these suckers back on.
Yep, and basically all I had to do was finish third or better. And I knew Joel was going to be hot. He came out, and he won the second moto. And Thomas was in front of me, and I just let him go because I knew all I had to do was get third. And I brought it home, and I brought home my 6th championship. But a year ago, it was almost like deja vu of me being out front, winning that second moto when Joel was bringing his championship home.
Right, yeah. Yep.
And I remember seeing him on the point of the track where he was going by, but that was me the year before.
Sure, yep.
And, like, I had the craziest, like, deja vu from that year before and going around, and I'm like, man, like, what a difference it is going around that track knowing that this is the best I can do and I'm probably not going to win the championship. But this year, like, I didn't ever see myself going into that second moto with me being on that end of the stick.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure it happened so fast, after what happened at Redbud, you training your ass off from Redbud to Loretta's, and then boom, like, everything changes.
Yeah, it was so fast, and, like, it took a lot of time for it to settle in because, I mean, yeah, I believe that anything could happen, but, man, like, what are the odds?
Yeah, that's amazing. Championship effort.
Yeah, and I never quit believing that I couldn't do it, but.
And that was a question that I kind of had was, some people just put it out of their mind and say, I'm going to do my best, but it's probably not going to be enough. But you were believing the whole time, and and you pulled it off. So you mentioned Gary Denton. I mean, so he has 8. Like, is that something that you think about? Is that something that's on your radar?
I mean, no. I mean, I don't want to chase, like, what he has and what he's done. And, I just want to enjoy, what I get to do every day. And I want to keep winning championships. And yeah, when it's my time to step away, wherever that is, it is. And, I never really think about trying to eclipse his 8-time championship because it's something that's just totally different. Like, he won with TT, Moto, and, I don't know how he was able to put 8 years consecutively together.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's such a different time. It's basically like a different sport at that point. And I thought I knew the answer to your question because, like you saying, it was just always on to the next one, the next race, the next championship, whatever it may be. But so do you find yourself, after the one that you lost in the middle of there, do you find yourself taking in the little things, taking in these races and these memories more now than you did previous to that?
I mean, absolutely, because, I was so used to success and, I still have success, but, we have other riders that are really starting to ride really well and they're getting the total package that can go out and win championships. And, I felt like those couple of years that I was really winning championships, like I felt like I was a man out riding against boys.
Right. You were on another level.
Just like on another level. And like, I always felt that I was thinking and being smarter than they were at all times. Like they were living in the moment, but I'm like 5-6 laps ahead of them, just thinking of like how I'm going to approach this and this situation. And, I knew the rider that was in front of me. I knew their tactics and I knew what they're going to do and their endurance, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how it seemed at the time. Just you being so calculated, like on another level of calculation, you were just spot on all the time.
And these days, there's not much calculation. It's pretty much as hard as you can go.
Yeah, well, I think that we saw that at the last race because I don't think I've ever seen two guys go as fast as you and Joel did at Muddy Creek.
Yeah, and you had Thomas Brown there knocking on the door too, and
Thomas, yeah. I mean, since the year that you guys rode together, I've never seen. I mean, Thomas is on another level too. So the three of you guys, and obviously Jeffrey's fast, but. The class is stacked right now, and a bunch of guys that elevated their game. Yeah,
it's getting interesting, and I would say the last round was probably it wasn't my best of efforts. I kind of struggled with my machine, and when we went down to Walnut on Sunday, I figured out what it was. So I came home with a big smile on my face. I felt really comfortable on my machine. And I feel like coming into Walnut I feel like we have something really special coming, that we have been looking for, I think, this off season. Like it was all my fault, just, doing that beach race over in Argentina.
Okay.
And like kind of bringing a little bit of setup from that. But that's a totally different beast over there. And
sure, yeah.
I was wanting to try something new, and it felt good at the time. Had a couple tracks that we raced, but when we got to that track, it did not work at all.
Okay.
And I was almost too focused on that I could just ride it and deal with it. So I was unhappy with my performance. I never rode a race so defensively in my life. So I just, that day I did not have pace to win the race. I had enough pace to maybe block to win the race, but that's not my style, and
no,
I don't like to ride it like that.
No, but still, I mean, even with, you had to ride somewhat defensively, you definitely weren't blocking, but because the pace you guys were running was crazy. But, so you found something at Walnut. See, I knew there was a reason why you went by me so damn fast.
Oh man.
But so in the midst of everything that was going on last season, the ups and downs, we now know that you were hurt a little bit at one point. You win this championship at the very end, but in the middle of there, Lakin is born. Your first child, your son, is born, and that was the Sunset Ridge weekend, right?
Yeah, it was race day. Race day, he came, and Danica's water broke first moto, and she kept it from me the whole day until after our second race. And after the podium, we pretty much jetted to the hospital.
So she didn't tell you until then?
She didn't tell me until then.
What an amazing story. Oh my gosh.
I was kind of like upset that she didn't tell me, but I mean, yeah, it would have definitely messed with me being on the gate and be like, my mind would have been other places, you know?
Talk about taking it for the team.
I know, and I wish I had a different story, because that was the first time I ever gotten beat at my home track by getting second both motos and Joel taking 1-1. Okay. So I was upset, but then I very quickly forgot about that.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't imagine what the next week or week and a half was up to the next race, because I mean, I'm not a father, so I don't know, but it's got to change your whole world, right?
It does, and you know, the easiest way that I can put it is a lot of things that used to matter in your life really don't mean as much.
And I mean, do you think that almost gives you an advantage as an athlete, because you stop thinking everything needs to be perfect, and you tell me.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, like, it really hasn't slowed me down, but like, for one, I don't use my cell phone as much anymore, and like a lot of the time wasting things.
Okay. Yep.
Really sucked me in before that. Now it's like everything, my time has to be well spent every day, because, you know, between, you know, the first thing in the morning I do, like I'll hang out with Lakin for a couple hours in the morning. If he's really good, he'll let me do some stretching and, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, I try to integrate him with, you know, my day as much as I can.
Of course, yeah.
And, you know, like today, like, Danica went and did like a yoga class, and I hung out with him in the morning, and, you know, I came down, I worked in the shop for a little while and got my machine ready to ride today, and, you know, he hung out outside a little bit while I was riding, and, you know, it's very special, you know, that he's able to be around and, you know, be intertwined with my normal day and not just be totally separated, and then all of a sudden I come back home. Like if I had a 9-to-5 job, like, you know, it's very special that I can spend a lot of time with him.
Yeah, that was my question, was if it changed your, you know, perspective a little bit, not in a hindrance at all, but was more, you know, you being grateful for basically what you're saying, like to integrate him right in. And someday he's going to see the pictures of being with Dad at the practice track. And if this goes on for long enough, he's going to remember being with Dad at the practice track, being with Dad in Victory Lane or on the podium, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And, like, he really takes a liking to, like, being around the machines. And, you know, he's saying Dad, Dad. Like, he's very close to being walking soon. And,
that's awesome.
You know, it's very cool. And I think the toughest thing for me is that, like, I can really focus on, like, what I'm doing. Okay. But, like, sometimes even when I'm with him, I'm thinking about racing. I'm thinking about what I got to do next to my machines.
Sure,
and
yeah.
I have a hard time shutting off, like, what's going on in my head with, you know, my job.
Right, yeah.
So I think that's the toughest thing on me right now, that, like, when I'm with him, I want to be 100% with him and not be like, I don't want to be thinking about my job when I'm with him.
Right, yeah, you're kind of making the most of your time with him when you're with him, and you're making the most of your time with the machines and at the racetrack, right? I mean, that's what you're kind of getting at. Like, it's the highest quality time focused on whatever you're focusing on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, like I said, that's pretty special, and someday it's going to be pretty special for him too. You know, that's pretty cool. So one of the last things I want to touch on is the Quad Cross of Nations. So you guys went over in 2017. Where did you guys go again?
We went to Italy.
Okay, so tell us about that a little bit.
Well, our first year of doing it, and shoot, like it came quick because like we talked about it, but all of a sudden like that spring we really went into effect of, yes, we're giving it a green light. We're going. We had to figure out the container and personnel, get all the parts, machines. Like, I don't know how we did it in time for the container to leave.
Okay.
And we got everything ready. We got, Thomas, Joel, and myself on the team. We got Mark Baldwin, Harv,
Kind of all the staples of the ATV community here.
Yeah, yep. Like, and I had Mike Walsh wrenching for me. Thomas had his dad, and Joel had Brandon, and we went over there. We went over a week early. I was there total 40 days.
Oh my!
Because we went over for Ponte Vaux.
Oh yeah, okay, sure.
Yep. And we ended up just staying in France, and we went to Switzerland. We went to Italy eventually, and we just toured around. I didn't ride a whole lot. I think I only think I rode 2 times other than the Ponte Vaux race.
Okay.
So I'm there for a month, and I've ridden twice.
Yeah, that's talk about changing up your program.
Yeah, changing up the program, and I wanted to ride, but I knew that my wife, she pretty much throws down everything in her life during races.
Yeah.
For race season. And this is a fun race for us. Obviously we want to go there and win, but I'm like, okay, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to go to Europe and be here, the 2 of us. And so, we just toured around and, together, and just enjoyed life and saw a lot of cool sights, ate a lot of food, and drank wine in Italy. And, it was a time in my life. And, we show up to, Cingoli, and rest of the team shows up. We have this awesome house that we're staying in. Like this place is amazing, and, great views right up on, like, pretty much on the side of a mountainside. And everybody gets there. We're all jazzed, and we get machines unpacked from the container. We go ride. And actually today I saw on Antonio Caroli's, Instagram, that he's riding at the same track that we tested our machines at.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I tag Thomas and Joel in there. I'm like, hey, does this look familiar to you guys?
Yeah.
So like, look at that guy, like Caroli, 9-time,
world champion. Yeah.
Yeah. And, small world, you to the same track that we were at, and he's out there practicing. The track looks about the same condition that we rode it in, dry as can be, rocky. And that's one thing that I know moto guys over there do. They don't care what the conditions are. They just ride it.
They just run it.
Yeah. So, but, long story short with that, so we ride there, we get everything ready. Everything's a thumbs up, a go. We go to, we're eating great food in Italy, and we get everybody of the team and together, and my family shows up, and we just have a great time. We go to tech. We struggle with sound, so we're sitting there.
So you were too loud.
We're too loud. Yeah, we're too loud with sound, and so we have to really start stuffing anything we can find in our exhaust to get it to quiet down.
Okay.
And we're taping up our air box and everything, just trying to quiet everything down. And we got him to pass eventually. And Joel had to run a different exhaust to get his to pass.
Okay, sure.
So just a stressful day because we're like, shoot, we're going to get all the way here and we're not going to pass tech.
Right, yeah. Yeah, because at some point, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, there's only so much stuff that we brought.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, you got to cram it in a container and send it over there. So it's not like you're working out of your truck.
Yep. So we got them to pass, and race day, qualifying day comes up, and we get out there, and we're 1, 2, 3 fastest, and we're just on another level.
Yeah, it looked like it.
That track really suited us really well, really jumpy and jumping right into turns. So we're setting our machines up in the air, and we go there and we win every moto. And last moto of the day rains, and it's a mud race, and we get out there, and this really leveled the playing field because those guys can ride in the mud.
Oh yeah, Europeans across the board, they're mud riders.
Yep. So it evened up the playing field, and they cut the race short because of the fog. It was just crazy conditions. Like, I never rode in conditions like that before. Like, we would be taken off I remember a couple jumps we'd be taken off, but you couldn't see the landing until you were ready to land.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah,
it was gnarly conditions, and we went on to win our first one there in Italy, and next year we're heading to Denmark, and I'm chosen again with Thomas and Jeffrey this year.
Yep.
And we head over there, and they're like, okay, you're not winning this year. And we're like, well, I mean, there's always a chance we might not win, but we don't know what we're getting ourselves into, because they say it's different with the sidecars. This track's sandy and it's going to get ruddy. They were definitely right about that.
Yeah, it looked, even like some of the bikes that they were riding, there was that one Honda, and it was like a dirt bike, it was so tall, and I assumed that was because of, the sand and the ruts and stuff that you guys had to ride in over there.
Yeah, it was like the craziest conditions I've ever rode in.
Like bicycling through the corners because you had to.
Yeah, like, I don't really go through a lot of rutty corners, like offsetting my outside tire, like weighting it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, and we adapted very quick.
Okay.
To the conditions, and we ran smaller tires than everybody else, and everybody's just there like, no way, like, you guys aren't going to win like this. And we went out there and we won again.
Yeah, but it seemed like it was, I don't want to say it was a struggle, but it was like harder, obviously, to achieve the win. It was like almost like you guys were more emotional or showed more, I don't know, passion or whatever, because it was harder to attain last year.
Yeah, I mean, the conditions were just not what we're used to. Like, when we rode in Italy, that would have been like going to
Muddy Creek or something like that.
Hard-packed track, like High Point or something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, off cambers and, like you said, jumps into corners and.
Yep, real hilly, and we went here, and super tight track, the ruddiest conditions ever, and we had a little more work cut out for us. Yep. But, like, results on paper didn't show how much work it was.
Oh, yeah, because there was, if I remember correctly, I mean, you guys were coming through the pack, and, like, it was in doubt at some points, like, for sure.
Yeah. When Thomas broke his chain, we're like, that's first moto of the day, he breaks his chain.
And now your throw-out's already thrown out the window.
Yeah. Yep. And so we're like, we gotta be spot on the rest of the day, because otherwise, like, we might not win. And so we're scrambling. We're worried about the chains and stuff like that. So we're all swapping chains to a riveted chain.
Okay.
Which we didn't bring with us. So we had to Harv went on a hunt to find chains for us, and so that was interesting. And
okay.
And nobody allegedly had a tool to do the riveted chain, so they just use 2 hammers together.
Oh my gosh, we're peening chains together with hammers.
Yes, so I'm just sitting there, I'm like, I don't know about this, guys.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe we should stick with what we got. But, like Jeremy Warney, a good friend of mine, he's like, don't worry, Chad, like, he's the best, like, the guy that's doing it.
Okay.
And he's like, he does this all the time. I'm like, okay, Jeremy, I trust you, but you're racing for France.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
But yeah, and, we ended up winning, and, we're going to another sand track, possibly this year if I'm chosen. And
so where is that, Chad?
That's in Germany.
Okay.
And,
it just looks like such a cool deal, and such an honor to represent our country the way you guys do. I can't imagine that that's got to rank up there with as meaningful of things that you've done as an athlete.
Yeah, it's certainly. And, like at the end of the race, like the victors, they play they play the national anthem.
Yeah.
And, that just reminds me of like, being in high school, like super like emotional before the game,
yep.
Getting hyped up, and like, it brings tears to your eyes. Like when you accomplish something like that, how much heart you put into it. And it's not just for you, it's for your country and what you represent.
Absolutely.
It means more. It's more than just for you. It's for that. It's
right.
pretty incredible feeling.
I can't imagine being that far from home, and if it ever hits you, you think back to, this big, beautiful, prideful country that we come from, and, there's the 3 of you plus your guys,
yeah,
representing all of us halfway across the world,
Yeah, it's pretty surreal, and, I've always said anytime they ask me to do it, I'm going to be there. So. Okay.
Well, hopefully you're doing it. You're representing us until you're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
So there was a moment, I don't know if it was in the last moto, but I think it was, that you were almost taken out by a lapper.
Yeah.
So take us through that. Like, I think a lot of people thought it was intentional.
Yeah, it's like, at the point in time, I thought it was too, and I had a really hard time getting around the rider.
Okay.
And like I would show him a couple wheels, and he would just stay in it and wouldn't really. You're not supposed to like give way, but you're not supposed to impede our progress.
Right. Well, he didn't hold his line, so.
Yeah, he didn't hold his line, and I came down off the step down, and he saw me, and he finally checked up, but all of a sudden, like, I'm diving down to an inside line, and I have my rear end tagged, and it feels like it's about ready to come out from under me. And I'm just like, no way did he just hit me.
And on the video, it looks like he shagged a right or a left or whatever direction he was going about as hard as he could.
Yeah. And, obviously I got calmed down by the end of the race, and
yep.
I had more to focus on just that moment. So, but after the end of the race, and the rider came up to me. He's like, Chad, like, I'm so sorry. I would never. He didn't speak much English, and
okay.
I felt bad for him because
he was legitimately sorry.
Yes, he was legitimately sorry. Like, he was tearing up, like, talking to me.
Well, and you gotta, I'm sure you thought of this, but you gotta realize, like, you guys are gods to those people over there. There's no, ATV wise, like, we're the Mecca. So I can't imagine it's like the Globetrotters or something huge, going over there. So I can't even imagine if he truly thought he wronged you. I'm sure he was emotional.
Yeah, he was. And, and then watching like the feed from the race, like
people were angry.
Yeah, people are very angry, and I mean, I'm happy that they are, but like, I feel really bad for him. Like obviously if it could have went bad real quick.
Yeah, thankfully for his sake and our sake, nothing worse came of it. But yeah, it didn't look good at the time for sure.
And Kevin was the announcer there.
Okay. Yep.
And he is talking. He's like, oh, that's dirty. Like he was ready to throw. Kevin was ready to throw punches and start go to war.
Oh my goodness.
And people messaging in and saying like, oh my God, like why are they doing that? Like it's just madness, and the passion from everybody. And when it's a team event like that, it's not like they might not be fans of mine, but they're fans of us, and they don't they want to see us do well. And
yeah,
it's pretty cool that everybody can come together as one and win goals like that.
Yeah, that's very special, super special. And I always wondered what it's like because I mean, there's not a rivalry maybe between you and Joel. Maybe it is. Maybe you would consider it a rivalry, but it sure seems like the dynamic kind of changed after that first year of the Quad Cross of Nations, and maybe it's because you guys spent more time together, you're working for a common cause, but it was almost like there was more of a friendship there. That's what it seemed like from afar. Did it actually change?
Yeah, like we spent more time together, before that, like I probably never sat down and really had a conversation with him, really.
Right. Well, that's this weird thing we do as racers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like you just kind of avoid the person you're racing real hard against.
Yeah. And, I obviously like I compete with, like Thomas and Jeffrey and, others that, I don't feel like I have as much of a, like drive to beat.
Okay.
But I was friends with them with like Thomas and Jeffrey before I started competing with them.
Right. Yeah.
So like with Joel, like I really wasn't like friends with them prior to like competing with them.
Sure.
So we didn't have a friendship before that, but it's kind of like when you're competing against each other, especially your closest competition.
Yep.
You got to have a little chip on your shoulder for them.
Oh, of course.
And, to really push through the hard moments of, being on the track, when you're tired as can be and you can't feel your legs anymore, and that extra little push, like, gets you through that. To,
no doubt.
Finish out in front of them.
No doubt. I mean, it's very difficult. It's always been difficult for me to, and I'm not on your level, but it's hard to be friendly with the person that you have to go be willing to run through a brick wall to beat, Nothing against that person by any means. I mean, that's what you're getting at here. But, yeah, you definitely need that chip on your shoulder because if you're friendly with this person, maybe it's going to take a little bit of your extra oomph away.
Yeah.
So it sure seemed like that dynamic changed a little bit. And then, it seemed like you guys were maybe a little bit more friendly, maybe a little bit, more, there was more communication, a little more joking around type deal. Then that thing at Red Bud happened last year, intentional or not. I mean, you were definitely fired up on the podium. And but I would assume that being the competitor you are, ultra competitive, you wouldn't change any of this. You wouldn't not want Joel to be there or have Joel not be at the level that he's at because maybe Joel and Thomas and Jeffrey and all these other good guys, but maybe because of that is the reason why you're still coming back for more. Because if it was easy for you, maybe your desire wouldn't be as strong, right?
Definitely. And, I think that's why, like, a lot of the middle championships were kind of a blur because it's not like it was easy, but, like, it's definitely harder.
But it was, like, expected, right? I mean,
Yeah.
And not that it's not expected now, but at least it's kind of like two pillars, and it's like, which way is it going to fall?
That's, that's what keeps me coming back and staying hungry. And, I've always said, when it's time for me to be done, like either I'm going to get scared or I'm going to be like, I just don't want to do it anymore.
Right. I mean,
don't have a hunger to push.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that brings us, kind of to where we are now, where it sure seems like you're kind of rounding into form, and, maybe you only have one win on the season right now?
Yep.
You have one win so far, but you're as strong as ever. And you said you kind of turned over a new rock maybe just recently here, within the last week. And now we're headed into some of your best tracks, with Walnut being your home race. Redbud is one of, or if not your favorite track, because that one gets rough. I mean, where do we feel like we're at right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to our next round, and mentally I'm very, very strong right now. Like leaving Muddy Creek, I was kind of scratching my head. I'm like, okay, like what was going on? Like I couldn't ride the machine that way I wanted to. But now that I just figured out my setup a little bit better, that, I have very good confidence going into Walnut. And I think that's what I needed to, yes, I'm out front, but I can't just finish second the rest of the year to win this thing. Yeah, I got to pick my battles and pick, which motos to go out and win.
Yep.
But I got to win these tracks that suit me.
Of course. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and keep my train on my tracks, and keep enjoying life. I mean, Lakin turns 1 at Sunday at Walnut, so.
So like you said, it wasn't your best effort. It wasn't memorable the weekend that he was born. So maybe you can kind of change that. Change that kind of narrative for his first birthday there at the racetrack.
Definitely.
So, I the way that the comments that you've made it sound like you don't have a timetable for when this thing is going to end, or when you're going to be kind of ready to move on. Correct?
Yeah. Obviously I'm still shooting from the hip and enjoying the moment. And, I still love racing. I love what I get to do every day. So, when that day changes, that'll be the day.
Yeah. And in the way that you're performing still, it seems like, it's like you're in your prime. So that's pretty much the answer I expected. What do you think your next move is when it is done? Where do you see yourself kind of transitioning? It's hard to see you being away from like racing or motorsports because you're so cut out to do that. But, do you have a plan? Do you have do you see what do you see yourself doing?
Yeah. I mean, what I really love doing? I really love the training, the stuff that people don't see.
Sure.
I really love doing that, and the preparation. I know how to do it really well, and I can teach it. And that's what I would like to do, is get a rider or two that are really driven, that want to win, and try to develop them into national champions.
Okay, yeah, I can totally see that with your mentality and what you've been through. I can see that for sure.
I mean, 2-wheel or 4-wheel, it wouldn't matter to me because they kind of transition over to each other.
It all translates, absolutely.
Yeah, it all translates. I mean, maybe not like a riding coach, but the training.
Right. Yeah. Like the training part for sure.
But I mean, obviously, the Wienen Motorsports, our business is doing very well, and we've been able to create a name there, and I believe that I'll always be invested in it and keeping that. And but I don't see myself going to a 9-to-5 job, so I love being outdoors way too much.
Yeah, and I think with the talent you have and the desire you have and the love you have for this, it only makes sense that you hopefully let it give back to the sport even when maybe you're not on the racetrack anymore.
Yeah.
So, well, Chad, I can't thank you enough for doing this, and I think that we're surely going to have filled in some of the gaps. I mean, there was probably stuff said here about, the Suzuki days, the Kawasaki days, the Can-Am days, the stuff that you had to overcome that maybe people didn't know about, even in the Yamaha years. And, I mean, there was stuff said here probably that's never been said before. So yeah. I think that the overall feel for Chad Wienen, other than being just a 6-time champion robot, like I think the people that get done listening to this are going to think of you a little differently. So I really appreciate you taking the time. It means the world to me, especially to start off this, my podcast with somebody of your stature. Just means the world to me. So I got we're going to finish with a couple fan questions here. We got a couple fan questions. We got a lot of fan questions. I tried to pick out the best of them. Yeah. We got some Ride 100% goodies that are going to go to the best, the person that asked the best question here. So, nice. Racer 111 asks, how did you choose the number 44?
Well, I originally started out with 52, and that was, back when I was still racing locally, and then I raced nationals 52, and then Dana Creech had the same number.
Okay.
And so I had to change my number in professional ranks, so I went back to 44. That was my football number in 7th grade.
Okay. I thought this was going to probably come back around to football.
Yeah. So I started using that number, and that's stuck.
Okay. That's awesome. I always, that's one of my favorite questions, is to figure out where people get their numbers from.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think we got another one here. Seth Richard asks, what do you focus on while you're practicing and qualifying?
Clean laps. And, just trying to hit clean lines, and especially in the morning, like some of the tracks can be like pretty slick. So just trying to limit mistakes. I think the biggest thing that slow them down is the mistakes they make around the track.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not about how fast they're going, but how many mistakes they make.
Sure.
So I'm just out to limit my mistakes and ride as clean as I can.
Trying to be ultra focused. Yeah. Okay. So, Blake 23354 asks, what initially made you fall in love with the sport of ATV motocross?
Oh man, I just had a niche for it, like growing up, and I remember just riding ATVs was really something that I really got into. My cousin, they all had four-wheelers, and shoot, I remember like going out after snow blizzards and going out on our four-wheelers and just riding tanks of fuel through our stuff, and just enjoying being out riding. And then I started going to motocross and doing that, and it's just exploded from there.
I remember doing the same stuff, being like riding my blaster in the snow for, like you said, gas tanks, and pretending I was racing Chad Wienen.
Awesome.
So Jacob Haymauer, he asks, why do you like the Wisconsin Badgers?
Oh, well, my grandma went to school there. She's alum, and she brought me up, being around Wisconsin and taking me to football games. And
oh, okay.
So that really tied me into being a Badger.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Now we just need to get you off the Minnesota Viking bandwagon.
Oh, man.
Okay, so does that come from Danica's family? Because isn't she from over there? Or is that not true?
No. She's actually just 15 miles down the road
Oh, okay.
from where we are here in Galena, in a small
Okay.
town called Elizabeth. But the Vikings came about. My cousin that I really looked up to, he was a Vikings fan, and he pretty much pounded that into my head that I need to be a Vikings.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, all the influences that are around you that make you be a fan of what you are.
Oh yeah, for sure, no doubt. So now this is something that I've heard over the years, and I don't know whether it's true or not because it hasn't come up to this point. But there was a rumor that you had the opportunity to play college football somewhere.
Yeah.
And you chose to do the ATV thing instead. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. Like, got basically accepted to go play ball and over for Iowa, and it was very tempting at that time.
Okay.
But like something with, obviously I love the team sports and all that, but for you guys to have success, it takes everybody to be on the same page, to have 100% commitment. It takes all the players to do that. And sometimes it doesn't matter how much commitment you give. If one guy is just missing just a little bit, it affects the whole team.
Absolutely.
So I felt like for me to go racing, I could put more on my shoulders and try and make as much as I can out of what I'm going to give to racing.
So when times were tough and, you had some trying years and, before you started winning stuff, did you ever regret that?
I always said if it didn't work out, I was going to go back and play football.
Oh, okay. So that was like a contingency plan. Like that door wasn't shut.
No, it wasn't shut, but obviously I'd be a walk-on,
Yep.
But I still love the team sports. I really do. But at the time I had more drive to want to pursue ATV Motocross.
Okay. So, yeah, because Mansky38 asked, why did you choose racing over football for Wisconsin? So I kind of revised this question there by, finding out the details first. But so those are the questions that I had from the fans that we picked out. So of those few, which one stands out? Which one should get this swag that I got?
Well, obviously the racing number is a good one. I like that.
Okay. We can pick two. We can pick two if you want.
Two? All right. And we'll throw it out to the guy asking about football.
Okay, that's what we'll do. So yeah, they're gonna get some goodies coming from 100%. So yeah, Chad, I really appreciate it. I think this is a really cool thing for ATV Motocross. Hopefully we can build from here. It really legitimizes what I'm trying to do here by having you on. So again, I can't thank you enough for joining us. And I really, now as we record this, I just can't wait to go public with this because it's going to be really exciting and something that as a fan I would have loved to have access to the stuff I just listened to you tell me here tonight.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to hearing it myself. And you do one of these live, I want to be a part of it at the races. Yeah.
So that's our plan. I guess we'll kind of announce it here, preliminary, but we're going to hopefully plan to do a live show at Redbud. So people should be able to watch it live online. You can come and kind of see it go down. My initial plan is hopefully, with your help, maybe we can get all the Team USA guys together, even depending on who it all is. But let's bring Jeffrey, Thomas, because they were both on it the last couple of years. You, Joel. I mean, let's get those guys together and let's go live with this thing and
That'd be cool.
keep keep giving the fans what they want, you know?
That'd be cool.
Yeah, so looking forward to it, Chad. I can't thank you enough again. Good luck at Sunset Ridge. That's the next one up, your home race. You're going to have a bunch of people cheering for you.
Yeah.
So, again, thank you so much. And, it was an honor to dig deep with you to kick off this podcast. Thanks so much, Chad.
All right. Thanks, Cody.
Yeah, so that was Chad Wienen. Can't thank him enough for coming on the show. And he said a lot of things that I don't think he's ever said before. So uncovered a lot of his story, uncovered a lot of things that we never knew. And I think the overall feel, the overall image, I think he's going to have made a lot of fans from the people that listen to this. So, yeah, it was great to dig deep with the champ, Chad Wienen. If you're tuning in, you're a true ATV motocross fan at this point, almost 3 hours into this thing, 2 hours and 20 minutes. I can't thank you enough for joining us, and hopefully this is just something that can just, continue to gain momentum. Not every show is going to be the same. We're not going to always just feature somebody's whole story. We're going to cover, the hot takes, popular stories, current events of the sport, and hopefully the plan right now is to give you an episode between each race. And as Chad kind of mentioned, we're going to plan to do a live show at Redbud and continue just to bring you guys the content that we're all looking for. Hopefully this is just the start of something huge. I have to thank the sponsors one more time that make this all possible. CST Tires, DID Racing Chain, Evans Power Sports Coolant, DP Brakes, and 100%. Without those guys and their support, the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast show wouldn't be possible. I also can't give enough thanks to my brother, who's the acting producer of this thing, Dallas. He's a tech guy, and obviously none of this would be possible without him. He's totally invested in it, and it's my dream, but it's something that he's 100% supporting in, and I couldn't do it without him. So I can't thank him enough. Thank you so much, Dallas, for everything that you've done for this project. Also, I need to thank my girlfriend, Taylor. She's the graphic designer that's been helping me with all the look of the show, and man, she makes me look probably more legit than the show even is at this point, so I can't thank her enough. And I also have to give a special thanks to my buddy Tyler Hamrick, who's been was the number one guy to tell me that, I should move forward with this. So I can't thank him enough. He's definitely going to be a person who's going to be on the show, and he's definitely insightful. He's got all kinds of good ideas and questions. So I just want to give him a shout. He didn't make it on the first episode here because it was so long, but I got to give him a shout out, and I can't thank him enough. So those three, they're integral in making this thing possible. I hope you enjoyed Digging Deep with Chad Wienen, and to be sure that you're not going to miss episode 2, definitely subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn. So hop on there, subscribe to the show. Give us a review. Tell us what you think and where we're at here. But the show is also available via diggingdeepatvmx.com, where you can actually listen to the show without the app, without any app. You can just listen to it via the browser. So if your parents want to listen to it, or you have somebody who doesn't have those apps, it's available to everybody. And we're trying to give ATV motocross content to anybody and everybody that wants it, because any content at this point is good for the sport. And like us on Facebook. So that's it, guys. Episode 1 of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, presented by CST Tires, is in the books. And we look forward to episode 2. And I'm Cody Jansen, your host. And until next time, thanks for listening.